You're listening to the Ballet Piano Podcast, lifting the lid on dance accompaniment.
Hello, podcast fans, and welcome back to episode 19 of Series 1 of the Ballet Piano Podcast. That's right, this is our penultimate episode of Series 1, and it's going to be our second episode of Question and Answers. But before we get into that, and I hand over to my colleague and friend, Mr. Matt Gregory, I'd like to introduce everybody who is here digitally and physically with me today. I start off with my beautiful wife to my right, Miss Akiko Hobson.
Hello.
And on the screen in front of me is the ever fabulous Matt Gregory.
Hello, listeners.
And the delectable hashtag David Yow of Instagram.
Woohoo!
Hello, everybody.
Hello. David, are you going to get really fed up of us going words that begin with D to describe you? For introduction to the podcast. The delicious.
Delectable. Delightful.
We've only got one more episode after this. So, gents, before we get into it, how are you both? Are you well on this fabulous week?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Our eyes seem slightly squarer than they were last week after another week on, virtual ballet studios and online courses, etc., etc., etc. But to be honest with you, this is a highlight for my week now because it actually brightens up my square eyes to see your beautiful faces on my screen.
Your hair is amazing, Matt.
It's getting bigger.
My hair, it's become a little topic every week, but it's so big. It's got its own Twitter account. It's so large. It gets in my ears. It's so long.
Right. Well, on that note, Matt, I will hand over to you to be question master for this episode. Please take it away for us.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just before we get into the questions, just to say to our listeners that Ballet Piano Podcast has a Patreon page. So if you like the episodes and the content, please go over to our Patreon page and consider becoming a Patreon to help us on this journey. So who wants the first question?
Me. Give it to me, Matt.
It says between the three pianists, but I'm opening this to David as well. It says, can you recognise who is playing the music? Not by the chosen tune, but by the way the piano is being played. I have a feeling you do.
Yes.
If so, can you explain why? And that is from Demelza on Instagram.
Hello, Demelza.
So can you tell who's playing?
Hi, Demelza.
Go on, Akiko, you go. You're literally... what is it? Stomping at the bit to get in there. Go for it.
Like, you can definitely recognize, no? The way you're playing the piano or the tune sometimes, but just the sound of it, or sometimes just the introduction. And
Oh, yes.
like, I still remember, like, sometimes, like, because me and Chris work in the same place, so sometimes I finish early or something, or I go to supermarket during the break or something. So I come out from the building and then the window is open from the studio and I hear the tune from the window and I already know that Chris is playing in that studio.
You can hear me before you can see me.
Yeah.
Everyone has their sort of distinct way of playing something, don't they? Or the way they sort of might play their left hand, or the way the textures that they use. It might just be slightly different.
It's like your personality, isn't it?
It is. I can tell the difference in when we're in work. There's only 3 of us at the moment who work in our team. So granted, it's only a 50-50 choice, but for me, it's really obvious whether it's Akiko or one of our colleagues, definitely. What about you, Matt, when you're out on the circuit and things like that? And you can tell who's in a different studio, can you, when you've heard them a few times and you get to know sort of like their way of playing?
Somebody like John Sweeney is so distinct.
Yeah.
You could be a couple of streets down and you can hear John Sweeney playing for class. Because he plays like he's got 6 hands, and just the improvisations that he does are so obviously very clever musically. Yeah. And so, you can always tell it's him if you're downstairs and he's upstairs or what have you.
I know the story about him actually from somebody ballet teacher I know. John Sweeney was playing for his class one day, and apparently John had a bit of problem with one of his hand. I can't remember right or left.
Yes.
And apparently he accompanied the ballet class with one hand and the teacher didn't even notice for a long time.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. He did like a week's worth of classes with one hand because he was injured. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Pretty remarkable.
What a trooper.
That's insane.
Here's another question, guys. It's from Lee Shield, who is Piano Monkey on Instagram.
Hello, Monkey. Sorry, Piano Monkey, not Monkey Piano. Oh, gosh, it's been a long day. Hello, Lee.
He is a bit of a
Hi,
cheeky
Lee.
monkey, isn't he? The question is, why does the pianist's heart sing when the teacher wants a fondue on a slow 3? Does your heart sink?
Can I go? My heart
Where?
used to sing anywhere. Taxi. No, my heart always used to sing because I always thought it was too slow, and I much preferred a nice slow. If we refer back to what was it, episode 7 or episode 8, that slutty habanera. That was what I always wanted. And then there's definitely been a twist and a change more in the last 10 years for teachers using. Maybe more, maybe 15 years for teachers using 3s. And I think for me, it was just finding the repertoire that worked. So it was, what was it? It's the slow E minor section from in the middle of Dance of the Nights in Romeo and Juliet that works quite well.
Oh,
that
yes,
will work.
yes.
And then things like that Waltz for Peppy, all the repertoire that we discussed, I just had to find it and work out what the accents are.
Gymnopody.
Gymnopody. Or even a slow jazz waltz or something like that. There's a really nice folk waltz. Scottish folk tune called Margaret's Waltz, which has got it's incredibly slow, but it's got a really nice swing to it. And until I started discovering these sorts of tunes and pieces of music, I really struggled with the slow 3/4s. And now I don't have a preference. So I used to think, and now I don't. That's my. That's
one
my
of the
opinion.
reason possibly is that some teachers tend to stretch the beat with 3/4 more than 4/4. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes when teachers tend to put a lot of technical things within the actual phrasing of the music, they need more time. So sometimes a 3 is better. But if you're thinking about when we talked about what fondue is for in terms of a preparation to jump off one leg and land on one leg, yes, the habanera that you described, Chris, is great because it has like a rhythm to it.
Yeah.
But the 3/4 is like an even down and an even up. There's no accent to it if you catch my drift, because sometimes you need to put a lot of stuff inside that phrase.
This question is from Charlotte Jones.
Hello, Charlotte.
And she says, does anything that either the teachers or students do annoy you whilst you're playing? Or to David, does anything that the pianists do annoy you while you're teaching?
Charlotte, you cheeky little monkey.
Is that a loaded question for David?
Okay, well, could I do a short answer from everybody? Yes.
What annoys me? Dancing off the music, I suppose.
Yeah.
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 I know what really annoys Chris is that when they stand in front of the piano when you're trying.
If I play for you, if
play.
you stand in front of me, I will hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah, move away from piano.
If dancers are ever stand in front of me, I just put in loads of tacit and stop time and stop playing, and then I'll tacit for a full bar, and then I'll go ahem, and then they all look at me, and then I continue playing, and they move out the way.
Because they sometimes just forget that we are there, don't they?
Yeah, I know it's never done on purpose. I think part of the reason why I do it, and I try and be funny with it, I know I sound like a grumpy old goat, and I can be sometimes. I'll be the first one to admit it. But part of it is training for, if you're in a school, for when these students are going to go off into company. Because if you're doing it subliminally now, you can't be subliminally doing that when you're going into a company, because it's going to look disrespectful. And not only are you going to have just your teacher there and a pianist, you've got other dancers who you look up to and are going to look up to for coaching and etc. But you've got God knows, how many rehearsal directors, class masters, and you've got visiting choreographers, you've got all sorts of people. So if you're doing things like that subconsciously, you don't mean to be rude, but it comes across as that. So I think that needs to be stamped out at a very early age as quickly as possible.
Although
Totally agree.
I'll say in a company situation, it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Dancers standing in front of the piano, because it's suddenly become a working environment, like a professional environment.
Yeah.
So as soon as they've done their bit, they clear to the sides because they know that other dancers are dancing and they giving them their space, etc. And they know that the pianist needs to, see everybody. So yeah, I mean, it does happen occasionally, but less so, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question.
Hang on, we've got David
Yes.
yet, haven't we?
Oh,
You don't get out of it that easily, Mr. Yow.
oh yeah, David. What annoys you that pianists
What
do?
annoys-
You can say nothing. We're perfect.
Okay, what David is thinking, I have a little bit. It's not always, but when the teacher set the exercise, not the right speed, and then just say not so fast or steadier, doesn't mean anything. If you say just give me the right speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because we don't set it properly at the right speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we play exactly what you want. So
Yeah.
You find that happens
true.
a
That's our
lot
fault.
at company and professional
That's totally
level,
our
doesn't
fault.
it? When you've got a guest coming in or something, or just any teacher coming, or a teacher, and they'll set the playage, and they won't set nothing musical, first, second, rise lower, 8, and then onto the second side, and that's it. And then they look at you and go, nice and calm, please. And you think, okay, well, I'm going to play a 3. I think I'm going to play a 3. I'm going to go with, 116 beats a minute.
I'll tell you what makes me. I mean, that hardly ever happens. So that's why it's very difficult to like pull it out. But on the odd occasion when it happens, when you've like become, the teachers like sort of like set an exercise. We've stopped in between. We're going to repeat it, but you're going to like take a bit of time to analyze it and practice something.
Yeah.
By the time you've got round to going again, of course, it's been a long time, and lots of shopping and things can be done on the time.
Yes.
At the time. And so you go ready and there's a big silence. And you go, hello. And then a little head pops up from behind something and goes, oh, sorry. And we start it rarely happens because the pace of the class these days goes so fast that you don't have any time to do that.
Yeah.
But there is occasions when you have to sort of like stop the class and say, okay, we've been doing that for days, that mistake. We've got to clear it up.
Yeah.
So we've got to go back to it. And that takes time. And it kind of like cuts the rhythm and the pace of class, doesn't it, really? So I can completely understand why it happens. But that does amuse me, the odd occasion.
Yeah,
it happens.
David,
That's
for me,
fun.
it's worse when that's happened in the past and you go, and so you stick your head up from behind the piano with whatever you've been, keeping yourself preoccupied with. And then you look and then you go, what exercise is it again? Sorry, was that a 3? Was that a 2? I've got no recollection what you just did. I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, I've done that. I've switched off for a minute,
Yeah.
and they're like, and I've forgotten what exercise we're on to. But just tell you a quick story. I used to like put a newspaper or a book on the piano at a certain school. And then a couple of weeks later, an email circulated saying, could we not read in class or could we not put things on the piano? So like, that was obviously aimed at me. So the next question is, this is an unseen question for Mr. Yow.
Ooh.
And it's from Anton Clark. And
Hello, Anton.
he wants to know, what shampoo does Mr. Yow use?
That's a very Anton question, that, isn't it? Brilliant, Anton.
We've been saving
That's
it.
made me laugh.
But this
That's made
this
me
one
laugh.
is not. David has got amazing hair, and he has no
Yeah.
grey hair. His hair is amazing.
And I'll just say to the listeners before David answers, we've been on Zoom now for several weeks and David's hair is always immaculate. And he even buzzed it himself. It's really impressive.
Thanks, Matt.
Unlike mine. Anyway.
Oh, dear. All right. Oh, it's very boring. Do you remember that advert? What was the advert? Take 2 bottles into the shower? Not me. I take one. Mine is Head and Shoulders. There we are. I've just advertised something for you.
Yes.
There you go.
David, I'm a Head and Shoulders gal as well. Why doesn't my hair look like yours? I'm literally a Head and Shoulders gal. I can't believe it.
Actually, I'm having a treat right now. I am taking 2 bottles into the shower because I have a little gift from Liz Earle.
Ooh.
So, yes.
Is that what got
I'm using
delivered
Liz
when I
Earle.
was playing class for you about 3 weeks ago? There was a buzz on the door and you said it was some product.
Oops. Could have been.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes at Ballet Piano Podcast.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so the next question, this is a funny one. And this is coming from Ollie Pike. So Ollie, if you hear this, hello, hope you're well. This is, what's the most egg on your face class playing story you have? Or David, what's the most egg on your face class story? And I know what Ollie's alluding to for this question because I've told this story many a times. And it was at a company and I was playing for the ladies and they were doing a releve exercise. And it's like, and it should have been on a coda. Releve and releve and releve and releve, arabesque and arabesque or something. That was sort of the rhythm. But the way the teacher set it, it was almost in half time. Releve and down, up and down. And it was deathly slow. And I was playing the quickest codas that I could play. I was literally a speed, and it just wasn't quick enough for the dancers.
Oh, no.
And the dancers are looking at me and some of them are walking off. They haven't finished the exercise. And I thought, I'll try and change this hub halfway through. I'll play a little polka or something, try and change it up. And the teacher went, oh, no, play what you were playing, not that. And I thought, this isn't working. I was playing like an absolute speed demon.
Yeah.
And it was so embarrassing.
That's hard when you cannot play quick enough. That's
because the accent wasn't right. But so yeah, that's one of my egg on faces.
My regular egg on face is I have a terrible memory. I've got a really bad short-term memory. So sometimes I forget people's names, and it's not just pianists. I forget sometimes students' names. And I apologize, students. Sometimes it just isn't there. Gone are the days when we were younger, when everybody was darling. Do you remember when everybody was darling?
Yeah.
It was so much easier because then everybody was like easy. You could just remember, darling this and darling that. But now you've really got to like focus on what you're doing. So if I haven't got the register there, it can be a bit embarrassing, shall we say.
Do you know, I think my most egg on face one, I was just thinking while you guys were talking, sorry, I was participating, was at a previous vocational school that I used to work at somewhere in the Western Hemisphere. And I was very good friends with one of the teachers there, and we decided that we didn't want to go to a staff meeting. So we went out into the centre of town in this guy's car for teppanyaki lunch because they used to have a lunchtime offer on. And I think it was like 15 quid teppanyaki each. And it was really, really good quality. You got your own chef in there. And of course, it was midday in the centre of this city somewhere in the Western Hemisphere. And as we were there just about to be served our main course from the chef, both of our phones had been going off from the director. And we just ignored them. And then we eventually plucked up the courage to answer them. And the schedule had changed and we should have been in a rehearsal with our parent company at that time and we didn't know. So we were stuffing our fat faces when we should have been teaching and playing. Oops. That was a bit of a bad one.
Maybe I think it's everybody, all the ballet pianists has it. But, we have this thing about the word and. And as soon as we hear and, whether you know what exercise it was going to be or anything, you just feel like you have to play something.
Yes.
And if you're not really focusing in class and then the teacher's talking about something and was just in between the sentence, but you just catch this word and feel like you have to play something and you just start playing and it's
not.
And the actual teacher was just talking about something.
I've done that a lot going back to, well, not a lot, but every now and then going back to your story, David, earlier when you've got this big long break while you're correcting something and it'll be halfway through a sentence and you go and because, especially in the days before Akiko and I got married, I used to use some of these coaching classes at a school in the Western Hemisphere somewhere for, just like doing mild research for my wedding or our wedding, like what the venue was going to be for the ceremony, for the reception. All these things happened behind a piano somewhere in the Western Hemisphere at one point under a previous administration. And there's a couple of times when I really wasn't focused and I heard the teacher say and I just started playing. I didn't even bother to look if the people were ready. I just heard and then he'd be like, no! So yeah, there was egg on face a lot around that time. Akiko, it's your fault.
There's something about this and with the ballet pianist.
Yeah,
No?
you become so
conditioned.
sensitive to it. You become so sensitive to it. Like a teacher might be a teacher might be correcting a dancer, and then they'll just say "and" or something, and then you just start playing because you're sensitive.
Just this
But
word.
yeah, it's
and
really
this-
funny.
Yeah.
That word.
Do you know what? If you put a load of ballet pianists in a room with psychologists or psychiatrists and they analyse the word and what it does to your brain waves,
goes like,
that'd be really
and
interesting.
Actually, you're right. It would. It would. Hook you up to an ECG. Yeah.
I've got one more egg on my face story. I was playing at a certain company in the Western Hemisphere. And it's playing a frappe exercise, and then the ladies were doing a balance, and so I was playing my balances a little bit under dynamic, so they're concentrating, and I think I just did like a little tacit or something for the last 8 counts, and then what I thought I had my hands poised over the final cadence on the keyboard, and I wasn't watching what I was playing, and I just did the final cadence, bum bum, and my hands were not in the right place, and it was the biggest clanger. All the women looked over at me, and I just had to say, look, ladies, I'm so sorry. I thought I had that final chord in my hand and just absolutely not. And they just laughed their heads off.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Oh, God. Trying to create some tension, and then it just went absolutely tits up. Anyway, on to the next one. It's here we go. Pianists. When you're able to improvise, do you ever look as though you're reading music when you're actually, for example, Vogue, Traveller, or WhatsApp? And that's from Emma Ortez. Is what we've just answered, really.
Hello, Emma. Right, okay. Total honesty, this is a safe space. It's not like it's being broadcast to the world or anything like that. There was a period of about 8 months where I had every exercise sheet music on my iPad. And what was possibly on there was the venue, the reception, contracts for caterers, entertainment, buses to ship people around. There was a period where there was a lot of multitasking going on behind that piano. I'm proud to say I always knew what the exercise was, but sometimes, yes. Sorry. Akiko, you've been very quiet there. Are you always focused?
No comment.
I mean, not
It's
going to
an
lie,
iPad.
everybody has a little look at the Instagram and the Facebook when they're behind the piano. Everybody
Yeah.
does.
It's
Or
an
just checking
iPad.
if an
It's got
email's come in
everything.
or something. Yeah. So, yeah, a little bit sometimes. Next question's for Mr. Yow. Just how much does David Yow love Cicchetti? Because there's a lot of Cicchetti things on the podcast.
Hi, Johnny. The reason, Johnny, that I do it is because that's my background. That's what I was brought up with. I had a fantastic teacher, or lots of teachers at the school that I went to when I was younger, and they really sort of they were very good. They were excellent teachers. We didn't know it at the time that it was Cicchetti, but what they were teaching was a very sound grounding in the classical technique. And then later on, we when you started to take exams, you realize, oh, I've been doing that. So we realized that that's what it was called. That was the Cicchetti method. And at the time when we were learning how to dance and being taught, we were very, very lucky because in the company, there were big stars who had this, similar, being taught by people of the same sort of ilk who were using the Cicchetti method to teach them. So we were looking up and then being taught. So it was all one big stream. So
Wow.
it became, just like normal. So for me now, when I'm teaching, although, things have expanded, they've developed a lot, lots of it for the better, in terms of teaching young people, I still go back to my roots, and I'm sure you're the same as pianists. You still go back to the person who taught you how to do your scales and everything.
Definitely.
If you were taught well, those are the techniques that you go back to because they are foolproof, and they stood the test of time. And that's really why I do it. The Cecchetti method and all that wouldn't be around today if it wasn't useful. Recently, a previous ballet principal of White Lodge, the Royal Ballet School, Diane Van Score, she was tasked to actually put the diploma level, which is the very highest level, onto a DVD, and it'd never been done before. And it took about 3, almost 4 years to do.
Wow.
And you can buy it now. It's fantastic. And she was very lucky, and we were all so very grateful that lots of people who are soloists and principals now in the big companies in the UK came and they volunteered to do it. So if you're lucky and if you want to go and have a look for the Cecchetti diploma work, it's brilliant. It's awe-inspiring, really.
Was this recently? When was this done, David?
It's a couple of years ago now.
Oh, a couple of years
came
ago.
out. But,
Right, wow.
Yeah, but I've over the few years that I've been like teaching everything, I've watched this Diane sort of like put this together, and the people that she was asking, would you be interested? They all said yes, which was lovely, and they've all done really well in the company, so that they're like major stars now in the company. So we are forever grateful to them, because you really sort of like. When we talk about the diploma work, it was very difficult for anybody to understand who'd never seen it, because it had never been recorded, visually. So here it is now, and the standard is out of this world. I would encourage people to go and see it if you can.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful.
It is,
Yeah.
So, next question's a personal one. And it's from Simone on Instagram. And she says, when and how did Chris and Akiko meet? And we want all the details, leave nothing out. We want the juice, the dirt, the gossip.
Okay. Do you want me to do this or do you want to do it, wife?
But you probably make it even funnier, no?
I don't know if it's even funnier, but okay.
I've not even heard this story properly. little bits.
You've heard bits, yeah. I think people know bits and nobody knows the full sort of jigsaw puzzle. Okay, so let's think about this. What date was it? Okay, so I first met Akiko on the 16th of February, 2016 at a ballet school in the west of a capital city in the Western Hemisphere. So I just got the job as head pianist or whatever it was then called at this place. And I hadn't met any of the team that I'd be working with. I just got in to take in, my passport and identification and things like that. And I was having lunch with the then artistic director or director of dance. And in came this pianist, and I was sitting there. So we were introduced. And, hi, Chris, this is Akiko. Akiko, this is Chris. He's going to be your new boss. And then this beautiful lady sort of just jumped on me and gave me a hug. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you. We're so happy that you're going to be here. Do you want to go and do a ballet class?" What on? No.
Can I defend myself with this?
Yes.
So basically, we were short of pianists. One pianist showed for about 2 months. And I've been very, very busy. Like, it was like one class after the other without break. And then I was literally playing like 7-8 hours a day without break. So just the fact that having another pianist in front of me, I was like, I can get break. I can go to toilet. I can have a lunch without standing. And I just thought I might just as well ask him to play for my class if he's free.
Was this halo glowing?
Everything was glowing, Matthew. You've seen my wife. She's very beautiful. Everybody knows that I'm punching well above my weight. But yeah, so from there, what was it? It was like, what's the equivalent of two dancers falling in love whilst dancing a pas de deux? That's what happened with us. And
that's so sweet.
No, not really.
It's not that romantic.
It wasn't that romantic,
yeah.
no. But yeah, it was semi-romantic. And then we got engaged in Paris a couple of years ago.
Yeah. But the first time when we went out for lunch during the break, I splashed the ketchup all over him.
Yeah. Yeah, you splash your sauce all over me. I'd forgotten about that.
You know, one of those ketchup, the bottle
The
one.
bottles, the glass bottles that you have to really shake dead hard to get everything out
and it
of
just
it.
splashed all over.
Yeah. And it went everywhere. That sort of
she
sums up our
auditioning?
relationship a little bit. It's sort of like functional dysfunctional, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like we got engaged in Paris, but we did it after I'd cycled from London to Paris for Diabetes UK. And I'd got the
I
wedding,
remember
I'd got the
that.
engagement ring that Akiko wanted, and I'd managed to find out what it was and buy it from a well-known jeweller's that we're not going to mention because they definitely won't give us free stuff. And so I'd got it in my little backpack from London to Paris. I was knackered and we got there and I stank. We hadn't had a shower or anything like that. So we showered, we went out for this evening meal and things. I'd already decorated our apartment and we, in anticipation, hopefully of Akiko saying yes. And there was a bottle of champagne in the fridge and things like that. And then we'd been out for this celebration meal with the rest of the crew that did it. There's about 25 cyclists. And I'd taken a bath, we'd done everything, got into bed. I realised, Akiko was like, Chris, go and brush your teeth. I was like, oh yeah, I've not done that. I was tired, I hadn't really slept. So I got up, went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, and then looked at myself in the mirror and I realised, this is where I wish I had sort of like a swear word beeping out. I looked in the mirror, I was like, oh, blooming heck, I haven't proposed. So Akiko at this point was in bed. So sort of like, I was like, Akiko, get up, get up, get up. She's like, no, I don't want to. Leave me alone. But luckily, Akiko gave me a card at this point that said, okay, for one day only, I won't be a princess. Because I'd done this 250-mile cycle in 24 hours.
I did write that.
She's like, for one day, I will not be a princess. Whatever you want for the rest of the day. Bearing in mind, I got this card at like 7 p.m. So I'd only got 5 hours to make it work. I had to get the most of it. So basically, it was not particularly romantic because Joshua, who's Akiko's child, was also there in the bed in the same hotel room snoring. So I'm just about to say, Akiko, will you marry me? And you got in the corner this. Anyway, so I managed to eventually get Akiko to agree to get up and sit in this chair and close her eyes. And I got down on one knee, which was difficult because I'd spent like 20 hours in a saddle. I couldn't walk. I was like John Wayne. and I just looked at Akiko and opened her eyes and got the ring there. I was like, will you marry me? And the answer I got was, oh, that's the ring. That's the bloody ring. Which I took to mean yes. And thankfully that was the so there you go. So that's a bit of an insight into our home life, I suppose, and work life as well.
I just remember, and then when we came back from Paris and then went into work and I saw David and I showed David my ring. And the reaction he had was just amazing. Basically, me and David skipped along the corridor together.
We did.
Yeah, but you know it now, but you didn't know it at the time, Akiko. That pretty much everybody, certainly that I saw on a daily basis, knew that I was going to cycle to Paris and ask you to marry me. Everybody knew who we saw every day, apart from you.
That's not fair.
I know it's not, but it made for good fun on my part.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It was a good
The
fun.
first time I met
lovely.
you two, I remember I was coming in the first day, going into the staff room to be introduced to everybody, and all I saw was there was just screaming and shouting, you two running around the table, throwing water at each other. That was my introduction. Brilliant. Loved it.
That's so lovely.
It's good. It's nice to work with your wife sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
I'm sure you say the same about me, though. I know you do.
Oh, wonderful. Should we have the next one?
Yeah, go on, let's
Yes.
move on quickly before I say something that leads to something else, like divorce.
This is back to business now. This is back
Okay,
to
right,
business.
back on it.
This next one is from Mariana Palacios. Hope I've said that right. And she says, what, in your opinion, is the best way for the ballet teacher to mark the exercise?
I think we talked about this a little bit on last week, didn't we? Hi, Mariana. We talked about it a little bit last week, so I don't know if we've got any more to say about it, but for me, is
using your voice, isn't it?
Use your voice. It doesn't matter if you don't tell me what the time signature is, because I will listen to you set something. I just want to hear the way that you phrase it. And from that, we can get the time signature, we can get the tempo, and we can know where the accents are. So it's just sing it and sing anything. It doesn't matter what you sing. It doesn't even have to be a tune. You can just talk in the way, if you can talk in a way that we can hear it, when teachers talking, demi and up and demi and or ton do and in. and the tondu, and in. You can get you get everything just from that.
Yeah,
So
you only
just
need,
use your voice.
you need literally about 4 counts in real time and in real sort of style that you want. That's really all you need. And David, you do that so well.
Thank you, Matt. I was taught very well.
You when you go and play for David, you can relax because it's all crystal clear, and and that it brings the best out of you if they've set it correctly, or if they set in a way that inspires you to play something that matches what they've set. So and be calm about it. Be just
I think if
relaxed
anybody
about it.
who's listening to this does a teacher's course or anything similar, if you can get people to just tell the pianist with 4 counts or 8 counts at the start of setting what you want, and it doesn't matter what level you're teaching, be it tiny little kids or full-on professionals, it doesn't matter, because that gives us the rest of the time to know what we're going to play. We can plan it out, and then therefore you're going to get the best out of the pianist that's playing for you, because we've got extra time to think. Whereas if you just throw it in just before you say and, if you give sometimes less than 5 seconds, the pianist is going to just go straight to a go-to or just blind panic, and you're not going to get the best, and the pianist is not going to be able to support the class and support you. So I think, just talk to us at the start in the way that you want it.
And also for the teachers, when you decide, think about the exercise, just don't think about step after step. When you're thinking, creating the exercise, just pick whatever the tune and then to see if it works. And then the exercise itself become very musical, and we can do a lot of things with it.
Yeah.
But if the exercise itself is just not musical enough, there's not much we can do about it.
Yeah. It's the way that you use your voice, the way you say it. You can say the same tune, but the way you say it, like any sentence, the way you stress certain bits is going to help the pianist.
Yeah.
And just the rhythm and the tempo is going to help them immensely. Even if it's the same tune, the same whatever, that will help them.
This next question is also from Mariana. How do you approach playing for professionals and students and adult ballet classes? How do you approach playing for the different sort of levels?
To be honest with you, I don't do a lot differently. I approach everything with a similar method, which is to inspire people to play and to make people smile and enjoy doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So sometimes the repertoire might be different. If it's an open ballet class, and you can look at, if it's going to be, say, people of a certain age, I might, bring out slightly older repertoire, maybe. And if it's younger people, we might, play some classical music so that people are, and classical ballet repertoire so that people are students are being familiarized with that. And at the same time, chuck in a little bit of modern pop music so that they can hear that all sorts of stuff is going to be played on the piano throughout their careers. But as a whole, I tend to I have the same methodology, which is watch what's going on and give the support and try and be inspirational. Those are sort of like,
and also, if
things.
it's like open class, this, people who come to open class, they love ballet, so they love ballet tunes. But if you play for professional, and then if the last thing they want to hear is probably Swan Lake and not Clacker tune, so you don't play that in a professional class.
I mean, we can stick in a special episode about that, can't we? In between season 1 and season 2, about reading the room and how we all read a room. So I'm sure we all do it in a very different way, and there's definitely different ways for teachers as well, isn't there? So we can. But
for me, the guy that taught me to play for class said, you have to play class like you're playing the best recital of your life. And that's how I approach it, at whatever level. I always sort of will play to the upper echelon of what I can do. I won't sort of dumb down any playing. I always give as much to an 11-year-old's class as I would to a company class.
Yeah.
In terms of energy, like you say, the repertoire might change depending on the level or the age or whatever of the dancer. But I'll always give 100% in terms of my energy. So the next 2 questions are the last 2 questions, and they are from Juan Mata.
Hey,
Hola, Juan Mata.
Maestro.
He's a podcast favourite.
Is that because you don't know his name, David?
No, he's a maestro.
He says his first question is, if the instructor asks for one time signature and sings a different one, what should the pianist do? Which should you play?
Okay, did he steal this question from somebody?
Pardon?
Yes. Right. I know Juan stole. Well, he didn't steal it because I think I probably borrowed it from somebody. But this is my go-to interview question because I just think it's fun to hear people's responses because I don't think there's a right or a wrong response. My response generally would be go to what the teacher sings.
Yeah.
Because then, in their head, if they ask you for a 2/4 and they go 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, in their head, they're just going 1, 2, 1,
Yeah.
2. But to be honest with you, I only ask that question in interviews because I just like to hear what people say about it. And I just think it could tell a lot about how people approach a ballet class.
Yeah.
So that's why I ask. I would always go with what a teacher sings. What about you, Matt?
Me too. I would, whatever they sing, I would play. Yeah. Because they're probably singing their exercise to the rhythm and the time signature that they want, even though they've asked you for something different. They're singing what they want and they know that their exercise is going to fit to that time signature. So that's what I would play.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree. But sometimes teachers say I just can't get the rhythm of 2/4 in my head, and I know I'm marking with 3/4, but I want 2/4, and then I will play 2/4.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens,
But sometimes then usually the teacher might say to you, okay, I want it on a 2/4, but I can't get a 3/4 or a 6/8 out of my head. Can you play me a 2/4? Can you play me a reel? Can you play me a jig? Can you play me a hornpipe or something, or a rag?
Yeah. Sometimes the teacher wants to hear an example and then they've got that rhythm in their head then, and then they can do their exercise to it. So that's where we can help out and suggest things as well. So very useful. And Juan's next question is, the music tempo of the class is ultimately the responsibility of the instructor or the pianist? ?
Ultimately, of course, if it's the teacher setting the exercise, then they really should be setting the right tempo. But that's not always the case, is it? So that's where singing and la-di-daring actually helps you. And if they can demonstrate a little bit, even with it's just their hands, you get the actual, the more correct tempo, shall we say, and what they're asking for. But sometimes, when you've got 2 minutes and you've got to fit in loads of things, you're going to be saying something faster than what you actually mean, and then it comes out in a different way. So I understand completely on both sides where we are, but that would be my take on it. I don't know how you guys feel.
I would think that there is sort of the general tempo is going to be the responsibility of the teacher of the class, but then the sort of micro corrections are then the responsibility of the pianist. So we're going to adjust things ever so slightly. We're going to adjust things sometimes by dancers or by groups or, by gender. We're going to change things. And that is going to be our responsibility because the teachers may instruct us to say, okay, we're going to have it slightly slower for the gents. But that's the instruction that you get. You never get given a time signature. So that's when you've got to draw on your experience and use your judgment. And then you're going to have an eye on the gentleman dancing and an eye on the teacher to sort of look at both and see, is what I'm playing correlating with what the gents want and what the teachers want, isn't it? And then try to find a sort of a mutual tempo for between the two camps, I suppose.
And if it doesn't work, you always feel like it's your fault, yeah?
If it doesn't work, it's our fault. Let's be honest.
It's always the pianist's fault.
I was going to say, it shouldn't be your fault because if the teacher is instructing, then they should really, know. But what I am always amazed about is when you're talking about those micro little adjustments, you're absolutely right. You all three of you are amazing pianists. We were so lucky to have you as our pianist sometimes. Because, when we say slower, faster or steady, what does that, well, we've been talking about this before. That doesn't mean anything to a musician. And, maybe in a teacher's course, that's really what we should address. What does that really mean? What do you actually mean? Because it's so unclear, isn't it?
Yeah. And I've heard teachers say, oh, I asked this pianist to slow down or speed up, and they sort of went to the extreme. And it really is sort of micro adjustments because for you to just go ever so slightly a bit quicker, for a dancer doing a fast allegro, just a little bit quicker for them is probably a lot quicker to fit beats in or intricate footwork. So we're talking micro adjustments.
Does that come with experience, do you think, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, I always take the tempo from the teacher if they're very specific and they've set it correctly. But, some teachers aren't always fussed about tempo. And in which case, I will look to the dancers. And if they're sort of floundering on a jump because it's too slow, I'll just brighten it ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Or if I can see that they need a little bit more time, I'll just pull it back ever so slightly. And that's just, to do with watching the dancers.
Because even the same exercise, it sometimes depends on like how they feel or like, whether they're tired.
Yeah,
And it's
what time of day it is, what day of the
adjustment,
week it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
How far through a season or how far through a term you are and things.
Yeah, so you just have to feel it, don't you?
I've noticed my accompaniment has got worse in the last 3 months. This is quite time specific, but given the current, global pandemic and lockdown, and we're doing everything on the internet, you can't make micro adjustments. Well, you can, but you don't know what you're micro adjusting to because you've got, we sort of alluded to this a little bit last time. You've got so many different dancers on your screen. You can't play for one person because you don't know what the delay is and what the lag is on things.
Yeah.
So you feel that I feel that sometimes when I'm doing these online things at the moment, because I can't properly accompany, it feels like, I feel like, obviously I'm playing 100%. But I feel like I'm only really delivering about 50 or 60% just because you're not able to do it. So that's, at the moment, that's quite frustrating. I'm quite looking forward to being able to just like have that tiny little micro breath at the end of a phrase so that someone can get in an extra pirouette or just spend an extra, nanosecond in the air and still catch it and still be on the music.
Yeah, this is the communication between the dancer and pianist, isn't it?
Then on the flip side of that is when David, you shout at me not to do it. And then I find that really difficult because our job is to watch and accompany, isn't it? So we look at what we're doing. If we can see someone's going for it, or we know that they're going to do four pirouettes instead of 3, or they're going to do something, and we've clocked it, and we all know. And then you go, no, do not slow down. Don't encourage it. I know we've talked about it, but it's just ingrained in our brain of how we work. I know your reasons for doing it because you want everything to be as it should be. It's not a good practice to be distorting the music in such a way.
For professionals, it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for students,
one of the tricky parts of the job for making micro adjustments is class on stage. Because we've always said about the sound is gone as soon as you've played it. So you don't get any sort of, you don't really know, your dynamics or anything like that. And there's always a bit of a delay from the piano to the dancers. And you might be thinking, okay, well, the dancers might want this jump a little bit quicker because they're tired and their legs are heavy. So they might want it a little bit brighter so it's not as heavy. But then you think this might be the end of the week. So they want it a bit slower because they can't keep up. So you really just have to keep your eyes open, be really sensitive to who's in front of you. And, on stage, company class, men and women they all just sort of pile in and do the exercises when there's a space. So finding the tempo that's right is quite tricky.
Have you ever done class on stage, Matt, when you can't see the stage or a Kiko? I've had to do it a couple of times, like when I used to work for Northern or whatever, and you end up playing the piano in the pit. So
I've done that.
You've got
as
some
well,
form of communication with whoever's teaching the class, but you can't really see the dancers, or you might only be able to see just the top and the front of the stage. That's hell. I hate
Royal
that.
Royal Festival Hall where you're under the stage.
Yeah.
And you can't see anyone.
wow.
And you're playing for a Rhett Mukhamadoff. Who's an absolute darling, but you need to be able to see what you're doing.
Chris, you enjoy playing on the stage on the keyboard, not the piano, don't you?
No, which story are you alluding to here? Which one?
But Chris enjoyed playing on, because sometimes there's no piano on the stage, so they prepare like a keyboard, and then he just kind of change the setting of the sound to be a strings and choir and all this.
Or if an artistic director's set a piece which involves a French accordion, playing that piece of music with a French accordion setting. Yeah, that can be fun. I thought you were going to say when I used to sometimes when we had this at a previous company, and I would record the first side on the keyboard and then sit there for the second side and just press play. So I would only play one side.
That is really clever.
It's clever and lazy all in one, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Bless.
Well, listeners, I think that is it for the second Q&A episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for all those amazing questions. We've had so much fun reading them and, talking about them and discussing them. So thank you to each and every one of our listeners for those questions. So our next episode is going to be in a couple of weeks' time. We're taking a little couple of weeks off before we come back and do a rounding up of season 1, which is the ballet class series. Where we'll just be sort of reflecting on our time in lockdown and how we've worked with technology and how, a little bit about sort of the ballet world in lockdown and during this pandemic. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks to discuss that really and just to sort of reflect on this ballet class series. But in the meantime, why not go over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Ballet Piano Podcast. And there are many ways on there where you can help us on this journey. And also you can get us on social media, Instagram and Facebook, at the Ballet Piano Podcast. And you can also email us with any comments and questions or anything else. We'll always pick up the emails. And our email address is balletpianopodcast@gmail.com. So we'll see you in 3 weeks' time, let's say. That's when we'll put that last episode out. So in the meantime, it is goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.